This is the third and last 10-minute deep dive for the gathering storm of self-identity. The tornado shapes illustrate the energy over a lifetime to sort out the core beliefs and values which shape and reshape the self-identity. It is an impressive life accomplishment to have a self-identity which is continuous and resilient enough to firmly ground behavior in compassion and compromise. Children and teens are not yet developed enough. And so their behavior can be all kindness and light 1 minute, and then completely contrary the next minute. But nature's plan is that we're born into a relational landscape because attachment employs consistency and repetition in relational patterns to build emotional capacity. And this is how emotional development is co-developed. Attachment is the key to be mindful of the child or teen's emotions, like in the moment. And then the adult role is to mindfully scan their own emotions, to get ready to co-regulate stress, co-organize feelings, and these cascade beautifully to co-author self-awareness and self-identity. Attachment expands kids' emotional capacity, while at the same time, adults are expanding their roles to keep growing and developing themselves. Working with children and teens by co-regulating, co-organizing, and co-authoring promotes vigorous unfolding of potential emotional growth into adulthood. And just to give us another roadmap, we can use Erik Erikson's model of identity development. Erik Erikson was a German-American self-made university professor. He mapped 9 sets of dilemmas guiding multifaceted social achievements, and he called these virtues of character. So starting with 0 to 18 months, the dilemma he mapped is basic trust versus basic mistrust to experience hope as a virtue of character. This is why infants need dependable relationships with adults who are emotionally available. So infants experience hope. 1 to 3 years of age, the dilemma is autonomy versus shame to approach will as a virtue of character. And this is why toddlers need redirection and distraction when they are naughty, but not reprimand or discipline, which creates shame. 3 to 5 years of age, the dilemma is initiative versus guilt to approach purpose as a virtue. And this is why preschoolers need to explore and play without much adult interference so they can feel and express their own purpose. Ages 5 to 7 is about industry versus inferiority to approach competence. And this is why school report cards can be problematic when they emphasize ranking and benchmarks and undervalue things like effort, initiative, and growth, which are more difficult to measure. And ages 8 to 18 is about identity versus role confusion to approach fidelity. Erikson's theory maps out 10 years for teens to grapple with fidelity. But emotional development, I love this topic because there are so many useful and overlapping models and theories that I can use. Erik Erikson actually coined the phrase identity crisis when he reflected on his own identity confusion as a teen, not knowing his birth father, and then rejecting his adoptive father's surname to name himself Erikson. And I'm giving you a flyover view of this model. So I want to underscore that at any age, the struggle to gain a virtue of character is not an either or kind of binary yes, no, to nail down one extreme of the dilemma or the other. Instead, development of each virtue is much more of a bridge between individual growth and social realities. In other words, a bridge between potential identities. Teens ask, who am I? And who should I be, with much more intensity than before, and it can be exhausting. So teens can be so saturated by social pressures that they need to isolate to reconnect to that hope, will, purpose, and competence they gained in childhood, especially if the society they swim in is polluted by corruption or violence in the culture. What if their ethnicity is marginalized? Or missteps in gender or race are victimized? This is the reality for many teens today, and their individual stories are the truest roots of rebellious movements, deviance, delinquent, and self-destructive actions. Self-identity is continuously expanding, yet uneven and wobbly. And that's why the helixes in this infographic start small, with plateaus of development close together. For teens and young adults, the landscapes are larger, needing more time to navigate and more space to shape who they think they are. A few helixes are leaning dangerously, showing how development can go sideways when kids follow the wrong influencers. Plus, emotional development can even fail to occur, illustrated by that red line laying almost flat. It's still alive, but not growing much. And like Gordon Neufeld says, you can fail adolescence. I think he means that some adults are stuck in immaturity, not able or willing to stand up for what is good in life, worthwhile, admirable, or valuable. Supporting kids to grow up requires a relational lens on development. And this is why I love talking about emotional development. So here is a quote from the book Identity by Francis Fukuyama. The modern concept of identity places a supreme value on authenticity, on the validation of that inner being that is not being allowed to express itself. The modern identity is on the inside, is on the side of inner and not outer self. Okay, but the truth is that people look at us from the outside to decide what race, gender, ethnicity, or faith they think we belong to. Isn't that true? We hear others tell us who we should be or who they think we are. So basically, we are all categorized and sorted by each other. The push toward uniqueness then continually wrestles with the pull toward belonging and conforming. So again, like I explained in the second deep dive, thinking backwards is useful in behavior. So consider how a teen is better prepared to carve out a self-identity if they have reserves of hope from infancy, will from their toddlerhood, purpose through play, and competence early in school. Of course, emotional development always holds the promise to build more hope, will, purpose, and competence. But teens with a foundation in these are pretty confident. They're already pretty confident to take on the next challenges. So just remember how this works. If teens decide conclusively who they are, if a teen forecloses on their identity too soon because they cannot hold and respect how both identity and role confusion remain valuable, then Erikson says there are profound effects on subsequent stages. Foreclosure on identity defines adult responsibilities too soon, maybe based on a family history where we are a family of lawyers or fishers or police officers. Or a teen's aspirations are locked in because they say, I've only ever wanted to be an Olympic athlete or a gamer. Identity foreclosure too early only delays the crisis of identity until later in life. And on the other hand, Erikson describes a moratorium on identity. This is delaying adult responsibility for too long. A moratorium can be an inspirational vision quest, exploring ideal lifestyles that turns out very well, but also teens can get tangled in delinquency, causing a compromise on morals and losing sight of the future. Authentic, earnest work on self-identity in the teen years prevents foreclosure and moratorium on identity. Because while teens are the author of their identity, so to speak, adults in their life are the co-authors. Just like we co-regulate stress and co-organize feelings, we help kids by co-authoring their identity, not to tell them who to be, but to support their struggle with self-identity. So simply put, we all need help sorting out identity intersections of relationships, gender, race, ethnicity, sex, and commitment to a faith. But what are the end goals of encounters with those intersections? The end goal for a relational identity is the capacity to juggle many roles in many relationships. Gender identity, to internalize social expectations that we can live with, but resist stereotypes which are harmful. And racial identity, to examine race, navigate race, and digest race-based experiences to build a better world. Ethnic identity, the end game is to reveal the deeper meaning of traditions, but also uncover the embedded layers of class, gender, and race hierarchies which need updates. And sexual identity, to piece together the scramble of secrecy, pornography, and the onslaught of product marketing to form intimate partnerships. And faith identity, adopted from the community or rediscovered out of personal agency. There's an upward motion to expand to the next plateau as each landscape gets larger through those intersections. And yet there's a downward pressure of dissonance. And it should weigh heavy on whatever doesn't feel right, or that doesn't feel like me, or that's not right for me when we're confronted by intersections. Emotional development. I love this topic.